Hi friend, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel. In today's video, I'm going to let my Virgo superpowers shine while I give you my first quarter reading stats with some helpful visuals, of course, because who doesn't love a well-organized pie chart? I'm also going to be sharing my extremely ambitious bookish goals for quarter two. P.S. You're getting the first ever insider access to this goal setting party. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to share my 5 favorite reads of this quarter, which to be honest, I've had the best luck reading incredible books this year so far. That's what we're getting into today for January, February, and March. In January, I read 11 books. February, I read 14 books. And in March, I read 4 books. March is substantially lower in the amount of books that I read just because I started a long fantasy series that averaged to be about 500 pages each. And honestly, I was just in a space in March where I was just really needing some internal time and some internal reflection, so I wasn't reading as much in March. The total books that I read for Q1 is 29.
29?
Considering that I read a little over 80 books in the entirety of last year, I feel like 29 is pretty good, and I'm kind of proud of myself, honestly. That ends up being 13,411 pages read, which when you do the math, actually works out to me reading about 147 pages per day. Whoa, that number seems like a lot actually when I say it out loud, because I don't ever feel like I read that much in one session or one sitting. I read a lot on my Kindle, so I never really know how many pages that I read at once unless I'm specifically tracking that. I also did something on my Kindle and I don't know how to fix it, so if you do, you might be able to help me, but it doesn't even show the percentage that I've read anymore. So 147 pages per day kind of makes sense. At this point, it's just a part of my nighttime routine to read a couple chapters in order to just calm my brain and decompress after a long day. The genre breakdown for the books that I read in Q1 is actually kind of interesting. I had 10 paranormal, 9 fantasy, 8 romance, 1 horror, and 1 romantasy. Weirdly, the main genres are pretty even, averaging to about 31%. Romantasy and horror are both stranded all alone on their little pie chart island. My highest read genre for Q1 was paranormal romance, which is kind of interesting because I was sure it would be fantasy. But number 1, my overarching goal for 2024 was and is to branch out and explore new genres. And apparently a lot of supernatural creatures are actually considered to be in the paranormal genre and not the fantasy genre. So out of all of the 29 books that I read in this quarter, I read 26 on my Kindle Paperwhite and 3 in physical form. I'm gonna lovingly call myself out here because I am famous for starting an audiobook when I'm out running errands or driving to and from kid stuff, or even sometimes doing chores at my house, but then I get sucked into the story and I need to know how it ends, so I always end up downloading it on my Kindle Paperwhite and finishing it during my nighttime reading session. My OCD, I just need to know what happens in the story. It's really hard for me to set a book down and not go instantly back to it. So technically I do use audiobooks, but I don't necessarily track them as much because I always seem to finish the book either in physical form or using my Kindle. But one of my goals for this quarter is definitely to diversify the format that I am reading my books, because I really do want to get back to reading the physical copy. I don't know about you, but for me, reading a physical book just feels good for my soul. I don't know if you're like this or if you have a specific format that you like to read your books on. During the entire first quarter of 2024, I only read 3 books that are not a part of a series, aka standalone books. 26 of the books that I read were either a part of a finished series or a part of an ongoing series with books to come. Yikes. I am patiently waiting for the next Crescent City book by Sarah J. Maas and Leather and Lark, which is the book that comes after Butcher and Blackbird. By the way, one of those 2 books seriously disappointed me, and the other one was a 5-star read for me in quarter 1. Can you guess which is which in the comments? While I was prepping for this video, I realized that I had a lot of half-star ratings within the notes section of my tracker, but ultimately I decided to stick to giving no more half stars going forward because my tracker doesn't even consider half-star ratings. And for me, within the intent of this video, I'm not going to use them either. So yes, you heard it first. No more half-star ratings added onto the book ratings I give. I actually have to commit to giving them the rating that I think it deserves without including any fluff. No more feeling guilty and slapping a half-star rating onto the rating I already gave it, just to be nice. I gave 4 2-star ratings, 6 3-star ratings, 12 4-star ratings, 5 5-star ratings, and I left 2 books unrated. One of the unrated books is called A Soul to Steal by Opal Rain. The only reason that this book is left unrated is because I was totally burnt out on this series, which is completely my own fault. So I just didn't think it would be fair to give it a lower rating than it actually deserves. Although I was super burnt out on this series, this book was really enjoyable and had male-to-male romance, which is actually one of my favorite subgenres. The 2 main characters were the absolute cutest and I loved their dynamic. I just feel like if I would have read this book in the beginning of the series, it definitely would have been a 4-star read. But because I had obsessively plowed through this entire series, which is a testament to the series in general, my brain was absolute mush, and therefore I can't really rate it properly. The second unrated book within this quarter is Gothicana by Runix, and a lot to say on this one that I will probably share in my February wrap-up, but overall, the writing was subpar. It kind of felt like the author had watched the new Wednesday Addams series and decided they were going to use that entire storyline for their new book. That sounds kind of mean to say, but like, truthfully, that's what I thought. It wasn't horrible because I am an absolute stan of Wednesday Addams and have been since I was in 1st grade. So I liked that part of it. But overall, the book just fell really short in a lot of different ways for me. And I just really don't feel comfortable slapping a rating onto it. When I first read it, I did enjoy it. And I thought it had a good spice level for people who are just starting out reading smut. Actually, put this book in the genre of romantasy because without the romance in this book, there was like absolutely no plot at all. So yeah, it wasn't my fave. So I left it unrated. I did not give out any 1-star ratings this quarter, and honestly, I probably never will because I'm totally one of those people that can read a book or watch a movie and find something that I enjoyed out of that. Even if it's like a mid type of movie or book, there's always something that I leave with after I'm done reading or watching. I don't even think I've actually like DNF'd a book before. Have I? If there's one thing about me, it's that I'm always gonna give it the old college try. I actually kind of feel bad about giving books low ratings or not rating them at all, but I'm in this era in my life where I'm being totally honest with myself and other people within my life, even when it's really hard. It's a practice, right? I actually broke down the ratings and what genres were within each tier, which gave me so much insight as to what I really enjoy as a reader. In the unrated tier, we had 1 romantasy and 1 paranormal. In the 2-star rating tier, we had 4 romances, which seemed like a lot for 2-star ratings, but I read this series right after I finished Crescent City 3, and I totally went into it just really needing a palate cleanser and like a throwaway type of read. For 3 stars, we have an even split between 3 romance books and 3 paranormal books. Like I said, I'm actually always game for a mid-easy read, so I'm actually kind of surprised that there aren't more 3-star reads. In the 4-star reading tier, we have 6 fantasy books and 1 romance book. Obviously, I'm a fantasy girly at heart. What can I say? I like what I like. And finally, for the 5-star tier, we have 1 horror book, 1 paranormal romance, and 3 fantasy books, which happens to be a perfect segue into sharing my 5-star reads for this quarter. Up first, we have Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, which is actually considered a horror book. At first, I was trying to figure out if this book is considered romance or horror because it's both, but I thought about my friends who are romance readers and what their response would be if they read this book, and most of them would be just like, hell no, they would not want to read this book as romance readers. So that's why ultimately I was like, yeah, we're gonna go with it being horror. This is actually the first time that I have read a grotesque horror book, and I know there has been a massive upheaval within the bookish community about this book in particular, but I personally loved it. This was my first official 5-star read of the year, and I had to take some time to digest all of it. Ugh. not the right word to use for this book. I actually was kind of nervous to share how much I loved this book because so many of the booktubers that I follow or that I look up to have rated this book super low. But remember the whole authentic and honest era I'm in? It requires me to be shameless with my likes. So here I am putting myself on the proverbial chopping block. Again, not a good innuendo to use while chatting about this book. If you know, you know. The next 5-star favorite read of this quarter is actually a duology. I made an entire video about this duology by Rachel Gillig, which starts with the first book called One Dark Window. This duology absolutely elevated my requirements when it comes to fantasy, world building, and diverse magical systems. The second book is called Two Twisted Crowns and was just as exceptional, if not better, than the first book, which does not happen very often. I could go on an entire tangent, and actually I did because I did an entire video talking just about this duology. So I will spare you the obsessive praise, but both of these books were 5-star reads for me. It seems like in the bookish community, this duology is something that readers absolutely adore. They love it or they hate it and don't like it. I haven't seen a lot of in between, but if you want more information before you start this duology, you can go check out the video that I did, which is spoiler-free, giving you the details on this duology and why I loved it. The next 5-star read of this quarter was something that actually surprised me. And FYI, for all of you AO3 lovers out there, this may be the next series that you binge. The book that I rated 5 stars is actually the 4th book in the Duskwalker series by Opal Rain. It's called A Soul to Guide. I've never really traveled much into the Omegaverse, but this series had me in a damn chokehold, particularly this book more than any of the other books within that series. A Soul to Guide was a 5-star read because it had a grumpy sunshine trope, forced proximity, a fairy witch female main character, and a cranky as fuck male main character who was actually just a big old softie. The plot in this book and the series overall was really great, and the smut was A1 chef's kiss. In this book, the romantic relationship dynamic was slow burn-ish and super spicy. I loved it so much. Also, a special shout out to the author Opal Rain because the female main character within this book specifically is blind/vision impaired, and the author actually brought on an entire disability sensitivity team to help do this character and her everyday life experience justice and authenticity within her story. And my last, but definitely not least, favorite 5-star book of this quarter is A Conjuring of Light from the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. This book was absolutely incredible, and in truth, the entire series is a must-read for all fantasy readers, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the magical system, the world building, and the character arcs were just absolutely phenomenal. The male main character was giving Draco vibes from Manacled, mixed with the Scamander from Fantastic Beasts, and I just fell right in love with him. The female main character was giving Aelin from Throne of Glass, which she is my favorite of all time, and Elizabeth Swann from Pirates of the Caribbean. Say less, right? I loved these characters together so much, and I really enjoyed the 2 main supporting characters as well. The only complaint that I personally had about this entire series overall was that it is such a slow freaking burn. But I also realize that that is a personal preference of mine. And I know anyone out there who enjoys slow burns and fantasy would absolutely devour this series and probably rate every single book a 5-star. Well, there you have it. Those are my 5 favorite books that I've read this quarter and that I ended up rating 5 stars. Now, let's get into some extremely ambitious bookish goals for next quarter. In the first quarter of this year, I didn't really set a specific TBR for myself. It was more so based off of the vibes and my mood, so when inspiration struck to start a new book, I just did. But one of my goals for this next quarter is to be a little bit more intentional about the books that I'm reading and setting a TBR for myself and just kind of seeing how that goes. So far in April, we are running a little bit behind on creating said TBR list. On it, okay? Another one of my goals for this quarter is to do more fun videos and reads, like letting you guys pick out the books that I'm reading, also theming my TBR books for the week, or even using other booktuber favorites to pick out what I'm gonna be reading. I have a really fun video idea that's gonna be coming, but it's gonna be like a year-long video, so that's gonna be interesting. I can't wait to share it with you guys. I wish I could tell you right now, but I can't, so I won't. So far, I am really excited about quarter two because I have some really outside of the box reads and videos coming to share with all of you. I also want to read some really weird shit that I wouldn't normally pick up within this next quarter. I've actually already started taking strides towards that goal, and let me tell you, I'm not so sure how it's gonna go. I'm a bit scared of one of the weird books that I started reading recently. More to come on that in the future. A huge goal of mine that I have this quarter is to diversify the authors that I'm reading. Like I said, I happen to read a lot on my Kindle and specifically Kindle Unlimited, and I don't even usually see anything about the author when I'm choosing books from there specifically. And because I've been newly tracking all of my reading stats, I realized that I have not diversified the author demographic at all, and that's actually a big reason why planning out my TBR is essential for me moving forward. Period. I would also like to set a goal to read one biography or autobiography per quarter, and maybe even sprinkle in 1 or 2 self-help or self-development books. Honestly, I stopped reading self-development and self-books a couple of years ago because I got so burnt out on trying to become a better version of myself, but I also really enjoy the different perspectives that sometimes can be shared in those type of books. So I may try it again and just see how it goes. I did also just do a massive book haul, and I got a ton of horror books, so I'll probably be reading a lot of those books in the next few months as well, which is equal parts scary and exciting. Another goal of mine for quarter two is to read some sci-fi. I absolutely love sci-fi, but for some reason I thought that it fell into the same genre as fantasy. I don't know. I have been collecting recommendations that are just specifically sci-fi, and I will be branching out into the official sci-fi genre. I feel like my Virgo self has completely taken over with these super ambitious bookish goals. But you know what? How can a goal even come to fruition if you don't even set it? I hope you tag along for the journey as I see what it's like to hit some massive bookish goals and read some weird as fuck books. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about anything that I shared, or if you have any stats or goals that you think are interesting. Oh yeah. And if you end up reading any of my favorite 5-star reads for this quarter, let me know if you loved them or maybe if you hate them. I will catch you in the next video. Part of my nighttime to read. I cannot. At this point, it's just a part of my, at this point, routine. But truthfully, not a good in yen to do more or theming my TR or theming maybe Conjuring of Light by V.E. Shaw. Why? I've already taken, guys, the next 5-star special shout out to the author, Light by V, and I really. Bye!